Good morning and welcome to the Return Homestead. My name is Mike and my wife Marty and I homestead 6 acres in northeastern Kentucky. Today we are back out in the backyard. We're still trying to get the fence stretched out around this garden. Today we've got a lot of posts we need to tie the fence off to. Come on with us, we'll show you how that's done. So after getting rained out the other day, we were able to, yesterday, get the remainder of this fence stretched up. So we've got this all stretched. I've still got some clips I need to put on some T-posts just to secure the fence more tightly to the T-post so that pressure can be placed on the fencing without it pulling away from the post. And it's this backside that we're about to get busy stretching. So I've got it all rolled out, just need to go ahead and stand it up, get it stretched out to that post. We're going to leave a gap. So right down here in this corner, we're going to leave a 8-foot gap back there. So we're planning on putting a gate in that corner. Going to hang it off of that wooden post, but we don't have the gate right now. We're just going to leave the opening for it. I'll stretch some fence across it. So that is on the agenda today, and then hopefully we can go ahead and finish down this side and back up to the house, and we'll have all the fencing in place. And it's just a matter of securing the gates, one on either side of the garden here, and finally the Silkies will be able to get out of their tiny little yard and have the full run of the garden like we had intended. They're doing okay in there, but things are a little bit muddy and mushy. They don't like playing around in the mud and wet, so we really want to get them out on some more ground. But before we got started with all of this, I wanted to share with you one product failure that we had. This seemed like an important thing to talk about, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as I'm stretching the fence later this morning. But we had a problem with this section of fencing. Now it is a relatively short piece of fencing, and I tied off to this T-post, and then I set 2 additional T-posts beyond the wooden post, and I used those with a brace to provide a point to pull the fence from. And I don't know if I pulled too tight or if we actually had a manufacturer's problem with the bracket. But we had a failure in one of these ankle brackets, this one in particular. So this is what we ended up with after it was all said and done. It's supposed to look like that. So after that failed, and of course everything was already tied off, so we had stretched the fence out and I had tied everything off to the wooden post. That took a significant amount of time to wrap those wires around and get that all pulled nice and tight. I put the clips in, and as I was installing the last clip, things didn't feel right on the top wire. And I was down here working on this post, and all of a sudden everything through here started feeling loose right on the top wire. And when I looked back this way, I could see that my brace that's supposed to be holding this T-post up is falling on the ground because this is what happened to the bracket. So I don't know if I just over torqued when I was pulling the fence in tight. It did create quite a bit of problem because that fence had already been stretched and it was already tied off on both ends. So my only option was to use a ratchet strap, come back across the gate opening and try pulling this T-post back up straight and getting that brace back in place. Didn't go perfectly. It is repaired. Things are back in place so that it's at least secure. But that was some time lost that we didn't need to have. So the warning would be, if you're going to use these same brackets, be aware that you don't want to over torque your fence. You put too much tension on it, you will destroy one of these things. The only thing different that we dealt with yesterday was this corner post, the wooden post. And so for that, use staples as you're stretching the wire out. And I do like to staple at least in 2 different planes, so on 2 different sides. And I do also, I prefer to have some twists on the wire, so I bring the wire all the way around and then also knot it off to itself on the other side. So it's very secure, ready to stretch against. It's also an easy way to tie a fencing in, so if you're stretching past the post, you can just go ahead and drive in a staple, and that's going to hold everything nice and tight while you tie the rest of the fencing in place. So we're going to get down there and get set up to stretch the fence that we've got rolled out here. And once again, we're back to setting up our stretcher bar here to stretch a new piece of fencing. Marty will be out here in a few minutes to join me, so I've got a couple minutes to get this set up before she's out here. But it dawned on me yesterday, we talk a lot about the returning to labor, and we also made a point to let y'all know when we were in the process of making the move out here that one of the most important things to us as we made the move was to make sure we were returning to life as well. We haven't talked a whole lot about that since we got out here. We used to talk a lot about it when we would show you all the lake on the other property. And yeah, I do think there's a lot to be said for taking moments of peace and quiet and enjoying the fruits of your labor, so to speak. In fact, it's also biblical. An instruction to stop and smell the roses is provided to the gardener, and that's also comes from the Bible. So we want to make sure we're doing that, but there's really a lot more to returning to life than just taking it easy and enjoying a moment. Part of returning to life is making sure that you have everything properly aligned, that the things that you say are the most important are evidenced as most important by the way you structure your life. It's one of the things that we desperately were looking to escape was that rat race that everybody seems to be caught in. Y'all know the maze I'm talking about. Most of you are probably stuck in it. It's that rat race of running back and forth to the office a couple times a day, spending most of your day doing labor for somebody else so that you can get money, so that you can go and spend it on taking it easy, having a vacation. Seems like a silly thing to be working for, if you ask me. We wanted to make sure that if we're putting out labor, that we're putting it out for a bigger cause than just a vacation. That there's something more at the end of the labor than just a paycheck. It's another one of those biblical concepts that a man earns wages to put it in a bag full of holes. It's just going to go away. We're looking to find a life, something more stable, something a little more dependable. So when we say it's a priority for us and it's one of the most important things in our life to make sure that we have good, healthy, clean food, that we know what's in it, we evidence that by the way that we live our lives. We actually put forth the effort and do the work necessary so that we can return to life in regards to our diet. It's certainty that the diet that's provided at the grocery store is not a good diet for anyone. There's nothing you can go and buy in a grocery store these days that isn't polluted, corrupted, or in some way altered so that it is not what it used to be. We don't want to participate in that. We want to have good, clean, healthy food that comes from a natural source, from the ground, the land that we've been working. So while yes, returning to life does mean that we intend to take some enjoyment back out of all of this labor we're putting in, it's really more about aligning ourselves correctly with our own values, so that those things that we say are the most valuable are actually evidenced as most valuable. And you see it all the time, watching YouTube videos or watching TV. People declare continually how important family is to them. And then you look at the way that they're living their life, and they spend a whole lot more time at work than they do with family. And given the choice between spending time with family or watching a football game, they'll choose the football game over the family. And we just decided we didn't want that. Marty and I enjoy one another's company, and we wanted to spend as much time as possible doing so. And that to us is a more important part of returning to life than the relaxation portion. Making sure we're properly aligned, making sure that we have communicated with one another so that we share the same set of values. That's not an easy thing. We've talked about that before when we were talking about and working on remodels. We've heard more than once how devastating remodels can be to some couples. We were always very careful to make sure we stayed on the same page to avoid that. And a part of that is the returning to life. If you have your values aligned with your spouse's values, then a little complication like some difficulty around a remodel is not a cause for divorce. I think we can all agree that life is not what happens in those moments when you finally stop and take a vacation. It's what happens in between the vacations. Well, Marty and I haven't had a vacation in over 15 years. We're not looking for one either. Where would we go? We live on a beautiful piece of property. We're out here in the peace and quiet. Yeah, we've got some work to do. There's systems that need attention. There are things that are broken that I have to repair. But where else would we go? Taking a vacation, going somewhere for that purpose, would only put us in contact with the chaos and commotion that we're trying to get away from. So, for us, returning to life means staying away from all of that. Getting ourselves back to a simpler, more biblically correct way of life. Yeah, I know. It's important. We did our civics lessons growing up. We know that we're supposed to become adults and find our place in society, right? And I would say that the best place for most people is outside of society. Things are falling apart right now. And if there's not a remnant of folks left behind out here, people who have decided that they're not going to work for money, they want to work for life instead, there won't be anybody left when it all falls apart. And it is going to fall apart. So returning to life also means making sure that we are separated from all of the disasters that are going to befall everyone else. And there's no way to avoid a worldwide disaster. If the earth itself is under attack, we're going to be under attack too. But we've spent a lot of years preparing ourselves to deal with difficult situations. We've gone out in the middle of rainstorms to try to stretch fence to keep the animals safe. We've prepared ourselves so that in the event of calamity, we're not just sitting around pounding our chest, making phone calls to a 911 that doesn't exist anymore, waiting on someone to come and rescue us. We're going to take care of ourselves the way that we're doing right now. And that's really the biggest reason why we think it's important to return to life. By making sure that your values are properly aligned, you know what to do with the land that you find yourself on, and you know how to apply your labor to survive whatever's coming down the road. Now we hope and pray that everything's going to stay fine in our lifetime, that it'll be peaceable and we'll be able to enjoy a lot of long years out here on this property. But if it falls apart tomorrow, we're just going to roll up our sleeves and get back to work, doing every day what seems the right thing to do today to prepare for tomorrow. Not real complicated. We're trying to keep it just that simple. See if we can get this thing stood up and get ready to stretch. Looks like I've outsmarted myself here. I don't really have any place to wrap this short strap around in order to get my ratchet anchored down securely, either on this post or on the stretcher bar. So I got to figure that out here real quick. This is kind of the fun part of homesteading, where you got a problem you got to solve and there's no obvious solution to it. So you have to do some experimentation and find out what might work. I have no idea if what I'm doing right now will be of any value. Let's see what we got going on here. You know, the truth is, this would be easy to do if I was just, 2 pieces of fencing further over. So, as much of a pain as it is, I think I'm gonna move the stretcher bar. So we got the stretcher bar moved over now. That's gonna allow me to actually secure that ratchet right to the T-post itself, which I couldn't do on the big pole. There's no way to wrap that tiny little strap around. And on the stretcher bar, all I'm doing is putting the strap back through the hole of the hook, not through the eye itself. So it's actually the hole that the hook is attached to. So we get a nice firm and secure footing there. And to the best of my ability, I want to try to keep this strap from twisting while it spools up. I think that's where I get in trouble a lot of times, is I get busy paying attention to how clean this is going on to the spool, and I don't stop myself when I get to enough tension. So hopefully we won't overstretch this one. It'll be easier because I'm sitting right here on the only post that matters. If anything's going to start deforming, it'll happen right here, and I'm going to be standing right here running the ratchet. Don't put it all the way at the bottom. You don't want to have to be trying to work that ratchet all the way down on the dirt. These ratchet straps aren't exactly designed for this to begin with. Yes, there are better tools, come-alongs and other chain devices that would be much better suited to this. I don't have any of those, and it just so happens I did have a few of these ratchet straps, so just using what I did have on hand. So this is where it can really be a two-person job at this point, because as we try to tighten this up and lift the fencing into the fence line, it's going to get hung up on these T-posts every time. So as I'm adding tension, all I'm doing is tensioning up between the ratchet and this point. Come down and break this loose and stand it up. Coming to my rescue, baby? You do. All right. Yep, we're at that point. We're almost there, but it's starting to get caught up down there. anywhere down that line where it looks like it's getting caught on a post. It's as tight as I can get it. Either way, it's starting to bend the post. So I don't really want to ratchet it down much tighter. See if you can figure that tool out.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep, not my first rodeo.
Tool's over there.
I get it.
It takes a minute to reacquaint with it. And then just like on all of the other posts where we've been putting in this fencing, we're going to twist this wire around itself in order to tie it off. Keeping in mind more friction is better than less. So get plenty of twists in there. And yes, this is pretty loose right now, but once I release all the tension on these straps and let that tension travel into here, it'll tighten up. Right now I've got enough tension on this that we are bending the T-post a little bit, so it's going to be plenty tight.
So we got smart after the third homestead we set up. Chickens are right by the house, and so is the main garden. This is the main garden, as you've seen before in the house. But up here on the hill, there is a well right there that currently isn't functional. But this whole area here is going to be fruit trees. And then right up there is a flat concrete area that we're going to be putting honeybees. So we've got a lot of work to do, but we're really looking forward to it. But this is going to be all pasture. We're thinking, we're trying to decide on goats or sheep. Cattle right now are really expensive, and we want cattle, but we want miniatures. So we're looking at either Dexters, our first choice, or Scottish Highland, second choice. They're smaller. The Dexters have A2 milk, and this would be enough to put quite a few head of cattle, especially if you use the miniatures. And then the barn's right there, so they can get to the barn easily. If you were going to put in goats or sheep, which one would you put? I understand that sheep have the Cadillac of milk. Never milked a sheep before, have milked a goat, but goats are kind of hard to keep in. What would you do?
So I think we got this all tied up well enough. Just gonna release the tension on the straps. Really kind of praying for the best when you do that, is either everything catches and it holds and the tension maintains all the way down the fence, or it doesn't. Let's see what happens here.
Okay.
So far so good.
Come on.
This bottom didn't seem to stretch quite as tight as the top, but we were putting enough tension on this strap down below that it was actually starting to warp the bottom of the T-post a little bit. So I don't want to go any tighter with it. This is not an animal fence, meaning it's not going to hold back cattle. It's not designed for holding cows in place. It's just to keep predators out of our garden and away from our Silkies. And it will definitely keep the dogs away, except for Sunshine. Hey kid, what you doing? All I got to do is get my stretcher bar out of there. Didn't think that through all the way, did I?
Nope.
That's pretty tightly sandwiched in there. But we'll pull the bolts out. It'll come off. So this would be another one of those places where having an expensive stretching bar would make a lot of sense, because the bar fits in behind the fencing and the wedges all go on the front. You pop the wedges off and the bar slides out. So they are very convenient when you need to do a stretch like this. Using the 2x4s is not ideal, obviously, but this is functional. It works. It allowed us to get tension on the fence and get it all standing up.
Good enough is perfect.
Yeah. Didn't cost us an arm and a leg, just a couple of scraps of 2x4. And then finally get all the bolts out. We can get our stretching bar out of there. So we still got a few more clips that we need to put in going down the fence line. We want to make sure that we get plenty of clips on the post, because that holds the fencing tight to the posts. So if there's any pressure on the fence, it will give, because it's very flexible, but the post will pull it back into place. It has a lot more spring to it than you would want if you were going to run cattle behind this. If there were going to be cows in here, I would not use this fencing, and I would not space my T-posts 10 feet apart. I'd put them much closer together. But for what we're doing, just to protect the garden, to keep the dogs out, it's going to work just fine. Well, we were at this most of the day. It's now approaching 5 o'clock, and we've got a snowstorm on its way. Looks like we're going to get a little bit of snow on us tonight. But we got this entire back fence stretched out, and we've got this whole side fence stretched out. We've got just this one little section. We do appreciate you joining us on the Return Homestead today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please take a moment to do that. While you've got that window open, hit the thumbs up icon. That's going to let the algorithm know you enjoyed the video, and they'll share it out with more people. And we'll see you next time.